the night before the election. It's November 5th, and all of our staffers, like, we're all coming in for election day. Like, there's going to be 18 of us and more. Like, our entire team, our families, we're all at this night before the election. It's the last rally, and Ted obviously crushes it. And so right after, we like get off stage and we're taking pictures with everyone, and we're really just hanging out just like as a team. And I cannot tell you enough, like the end of the night, right before we all go home to get sleep before it ends, like Ted gets in the middle of this room and we all get around him and we all say, "Cruz on three, 1, 2, 3, Cruz," like a football team. And we walk out and it ends. And it's like, that was awesome.
We have to find a way to talk and have dialogue and be tolerant between other views.
You have to have open dialogue, and that's where free speech is so important.
Consent's a very important thing, and today in the Me Too movement, it's been very important because I think it's really opened up a lot of eyes.
I think we should get away from this hookup culture and get back to relationships, because when you have a relationship, you have that communication, you have that connection.
If you committed sexual assault, it doesn't matter when it was, you should be held accountable for that. However, we have to make sure that we actually make sure they committed sexual assault, and we have to make sure that all allegations are verified.
So put in these programs thinking that it'll help everyone, but what they forget is that the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions.
And I think that's what this whole movement is all about anyways, is trying to be open to ideas.
All right, Will, tell us about what it's like to actually work with Ted Cruz off the camera. Everyone only sees the senator on camera. What is he like off camera?
Senator Cruz is really cool. He ended up being, I always looked up to him. And so after being at a few events, it became very obvious that he is the same stellar person. But once the curtain comes down, he is a dad, a neighbor, a husband, a Christian, and all these things. And so this larger-than-life figure becomes this regular guy. Working with Senator Cruz and working for Senator Cruz was so much fun. And the team was so much fun. So we would have basketball tournaments every day, just playing Pop-A-Shot, just having conversations, asking us how we were, asking us how our families were. I think another great example of Senator Cruz kind of behind the curtains is we actually had an event at Faith West Academy where he went to high school. And he was on the high school basketball team, so we have an event at Faith West Academy in the gym, where he grew up, and he does this speech. He gives this awesome speech for about an hour. It was a couple days after the Kavanaugh hearing, so there were plenty of questions. He was really excited, and we were all excited to hear what he had to say. And so he gives this great wisdom, this great insight, and as soon as he steps off stage, he's asking where his gym shorts are and his basketball shoes, because he wants to go get changed and challenge the high school varsity basketball team at the time to play a game of pickup basketball. So it's that competitiveness and that excellence of the level that he's at, and he just treats everyone like they're just as great as he is, and he really believes that, and I believe it too, but that we are all equal. And so seeing that side of him was incredible. Or another great thing I saw was we were filming a commercial, and both his daughters were there, Catherine and Caroline, and they're great. Miss Heidi was there, his wife, and she's phenomenal too. She's a rock star. But in between cuts, Senator Cruz was helping his daughters memorize, or his oldest daughter memorize, the Scout Oath and the Scout Honor. So just seeing this guy go through and give these great speeches and rhetoric and plan these great commercials and messaging, to then the lights turn off immediately, and the first thing he does is turn to his kids and to turn to his daughters, and he wants to help them, and he wants to encourage them and have them be a part of this all, but while also focusing on what specifically is going on in their life. It was really incredible to see.
So it's crazy. People think that, people are not human anymore, that these politicians are so evil that they can protest them and kick them out even to have a lunch.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that the story of, Senator Cruz and Heidi having a date night on, just a Friday night. I think it was a Friday night. But what people don't really understand is she's super, and don't know, not understand, she's super successful. She's worked in the White House. She worked for Condoleezza Rice as a national security advisor. Maybe not that specific title, but had a lot of responsibility. And, you know, she comes on and she comes down, and now she's at the point that she's an executive for Goldman Sachs here in Houston. And so she's really busy and she's really successful. He's really busy and he's really successful. And so they find the time and they're in D.C. They're going to one of their favorite spots in D.C. and they're eating dinner and they're just being heckled. And, you know, protesters were in there waiting, and they get heckled and they get walked out. So that's the famous clip. The media has it all over the place as Ted Cruz gets chanted out of a restaurant at dinner. But it got a little bit of media coverage, but it didn't get much. But the end of that story is that they walked him back and they walked him outside, and then they escorted the protesters out and made sure they couldn't come back. And then Miss Heidi and Mr. Cruz walked to the back of the restaurant with the staff, walked back in, sat at their table, and finished their dinner. So it's really funny that we highlight the malintent of these protesters for individual rhetoric to show how much people don't like Ted Cruz, but they don't highlight how great and how regular just of a person he is and how regular him and his wife's relationship is. That they just hang out and they finish their dinner like regular humans and regular citizens. So the very first time I was at a Ted Cruz event, the very first time I even saw Senator Cruz in person, I was an intern and we were having our campaign kickoff event in Houston at the Redneck Country Club. There's a ton of people there. Great event. And I have to leave during the middle of it. So I messed up and I didn't bring the t-shirts that we were going to give to our other staffers to go and pass out across the state. So I actually have to leave the event and I'm devastated. I cannot believe I forgot these t-shirts, but I don't want to let anyone down. So I take care of it. I miss the speech and I come back and I give out the t-shirts. Well, as I'm driving back, completely devastated. When I get back, Senator Cruz is just in the back of this restaurant, no cameras, nothing. And he's just playing basketball with these 3 kids that came to the event. And it's Senator Cruz and Michael Berry just playing pickup basketball. And they might have been Michael Berry's kids. But he's just playing basketball. And that was really, really cool to see. Here's a really funny story, and maybe I'll send you the picture. But there's this really awesome guy that works on the campaign. And any picture you see, there will be a picture of Grant Murray standing right behind Senator Cruz. There's a few pictures where I'm taking the picture, Senator Cruz is smiling in the picture, and Grant is in the back. And he goes unnoticed, but someone wrote, I think The Guardian wrote this really cool story about how badass Grant Murray was without knowing who he was. But Grant Murray's this really cool guy, and when I first started on the campaign, I was terrified of Grant Murray. I was like, this guy is the real deal. He's like 6'4". He played college football at Texas Tech. He worked for NASA. Now he works for Senator Cruz. And he's just like this really intimidating guy. And like throughout the campaign, he really kind of almost became, I don't know, like I look at Grant like an older brother now. The first memory I have that I was like really, it's like Grant is really funny is, you know, you go to all these events and you don't really find time to eat at a lot of them. But we have an event in our office and Senator Cruz is talking, and it's a very closed room. It's probably 25, 35 people. And we just wanted some of our best volunteers to come out and have the opportunity to meet him. And me and Grant are just kind of staring at the room and making sure everything's going well. And then we just kind of look at each other and immediately think and say, where's the pizza? Like at the same time. We ask where the food is. And we just immediately stand and Ted's speaking in the back, and we're just eating pizza. And so that was a really cool one. But by the end of the campaign, I mean, he had really become like an older brother to me. We talked about shoes all the time and different clothes even. I mean, I think he drives a 71 Camaro. I mean, he's a badass dude. And so for Halloween, I decided I was going to be Grant Murray. And so there is a cardboard cutout of Senator Cruz in the office. And I didn't say this earlier, but Grant shaves his head. He's a bald guy. He shaves his head, and he has a sweet beard. And so for about a month, I decided, okay, I'm going to grow out my facial hair, and then I'm going to go to Party City, and I bought a bald cap. And so on Halloween, I went around and took pictures in the office, like standing behind Senator Cruz, like protecting him in this bald cap. And it was this really funny thing, and I was so worried that everyone was going to be mad at me for it. And all of a sudden, everyone on the team starts texting me. And they're like, this is so funny. This is great. So then all of a sudden, Miss Emily calls me, Emily Miller, and she calls me, and she's like, everyone on this bus is laughing hysterically. And then all of a sudden, she goes, oh, here he is. And then it's Senator Cruz talking to me. And Senator Cruz is telling me, like, hey, that was a great Halloween costume. That was hilarious. And that's just like another example of like how team-oriented it was like this, I just put on a bald cap and had a beard. But a day after, like 10, 12 hours of campaigning, Senator Cruz like calls and he's like, hey, that was hilarious. So that was pretty cool. There's this other really cool story, and I guess it's not a cool story, but one day we did a Fox News interview in the office, and Senator Cruz is in the office, and he's doing Fox Business and maybe ABC. There's one other news outlet. And so we get it all set up, and we happen to have a full house of volunteers that day, so it's awesome. And the room is packed. The energy is high. Senator Cruz comes in, kills it like usual. And later that night, I'm getting set up. I'm getting my volunteer set up to knock on doors the next morning. And I also have an event with Senator Cruz that I helped plan in Columbus, Texas. And it was probably 10, 11 at night, but I'd been working. So me and another buddy who lives kind of by the office, he came and picked me up, and we went to Waffle House just trying to get some dinner in. And on the way home from Waffle House, someone ran a red light and T-boned us. And so we spun and hit a pole. So totals his car. I get taken to the hospital. I get an ambulance to the hospital. Have to call my parents, and I didn't call my parents. My buddy did, and tell them, hey, I'm going to the hospital, etc. So I go to the hospital. I'm in the hospital. And random side note of this story, but in the hospital, I kept saying, I have to get back to work. I have to be able to go to work tomorrow. And I've got a broken face. Like, my nose is broken. Like, I got blood all over my shirt and everything. And I keep saying, I have an event with Senator Cruz tomorrow. And I say that so many times because I'm trying to mentally tell myself, you're fine, you're fine. And so I say that so many times that my doctor in the emergency room finally tells me, he's not going to win anyway. Why do you want to work for him? And so here I am. I'm in tears. My parents are in tears because, their baby boy has blood all over him, etc. And here my doctor is in the emergency room arguing to me about how Beto better represents the state of Texas than Ted Cruz. And like a true grassroots activist, I am arguing back with him. And so I am just like, my head is still duct taped to the backboard that I'm laying on at this point. I can't even look him in the eye because he's standing at my feet. But I'm telling him, you're wrong. You're a doctor. Why do you even want, Ted Cruz is for good and logical healthcare practices and healthcare and health insurance. How could you, as a doctor, support our opponent? And so that was great, but I end up coming home, and so I'm laying in bed. Actually, I'm on the couch because how are they going to get me upstairs? So I'm laying on the couch, and I just kind of laying there out of it. It's about 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm watching about 5 minutes of college football at a time, and one of our lead consultant, Jeff Rowe, who ran Senator Cruz's presidential campaign, he called me on my phone, and he said, "Hey, how are you?" And I was shocked. As someone who's low of the low, I'm like, man, this is crazy. I mean, I can't even believe it. Like, why would he call me? So I talked to him for a few minutes, and he's really encouraging and lets me know he's praying for me, and so that was great. And I go back to sleep. Okay, and LSU was playing Auburn that day. I remember because it's a great game. But anyways, we're laying there watching the LSU Auburn game, and Senator Cruz is on his way from one event to the next, and he probably has an hour or so. And he always has conference calls with everyone, trying to get as much information and do interviews and talk to his family and do everything that he can. And all of a sudden, I get a call from a number I don't recognize, and I'm asleep. And my girlfriend wakes me up, and my phone's ringing. And we swipe it and answer the phone because people are calling, making sure I'm okay. And it's Senator Cruz. And he says, "Hey, Will, this is Ted." And it was just like the most relaxed, like we're talking, old buddies just talking. He said, hey, Will, this is Ted. And my first thought was, Ted who? And we start talking, and he was just letting me know, like, I was in his thoughts and prayers, and his family's thoughts and prayers, and that they were going to miss me at the next event that I was supposed to be at. And that was like the first time that I really realized, like, this really is a family. When your lowest campaign staffer gets in a car accident, most campaigns, most people wouldn't find out, right? Like if you worked for, GQ and you got in a car accident, whoever the CEO of GQ isn't going to call you, right? But the fact that Senator Cruz took 15 minutes out of his busy day to call me and to try to comfort me and my family meant the world to all of us.